Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Library Love Fests, Door to Door. So happy to have you here today. I'm Virginia Stanley,
I'm
and
Chris
with me,
Connolly. Oh, sorry. I'm Chris Connolly. I was too excited to introduce myself. This is a really fun episode, though, so the excitement is justified. Hi, everyone.
I'm excited as well. I don't want you to not think I'm not. I'm Lainey Mays.
the three of us are very excited. Look,
So are we.
who are you? Welcome, Suzanne and Matt and David. Sorry. So listen, every episode we say this is a very special episode, but this is a very special episode. This is unique. And it is unique because we have our wonderful editor, David Highfill, here to speak to two authors of one of the most buzzed about books of the season. And so we don't normally have an editor and authors on together. And it's such a unique relationship that we thought this is such a different book and it's such a page turner and there's so much to it. And while we could talk to the authors, and we will, we want David Highfill, who acquired and edited this book, to head off the conversation. So here, let me go back because I'm riffing as when I do. But David Highfill, VP Executive Editor at William Morrow for 15 years. David, you're just a baby. And David is a wonderful person in addition to being a wonderful editor. You are just one of the kindest people I've ever known. And you've published a wide range of authors. Greg Iles, Patricia Cornwell, Peter Swanson, Wiley Cash, Brad Taylor, Sarah Pinborough, and now L.R. Dorn. L.R. Dorn, this is the pen name for Matt Dorff and Suzanne Dunn. Their book, The Anatomy of Desire, is going on sale May 11th. And let me tell you something, this book is such a page turner. There's no good place to stop, I guarantee you. So Matt Dorff, Suzanne Dunn. Matt is a Los Angeles native and a graduate of the USC School of Cinematic Arts. He's written, published, and or directed movies for CBS, NBC, ABC, Lifetime, HBO, and others. Suzanne is a two-time Emmy Award winner and has written for Lifetime and Ion Networks and is a member of the Producers Guild and Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. She grew up in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and earned a master's degree from the University of Chicago. Did I just have to read all that? Of course I did, because it would be horrible to try to remember that and forget any of it, because those accomplishments are amazing. And thank you both so much for joining us today. And thank you, David, for taking the time to talk with our authors and librarians about this book. I'll give you 2 sentences about the book, and then I'm going to turn it over to you guys. I'll be here. So, The Anatomy of Desire, slick, sexy, documentary-style thriller. Think Serial and Making of a Murderer. And it's about a young media influencer who kills another young woman, then goes off to join her boyfriend and his influencer friends for a weekend of off the grid in rural California. Josh Malerman, who wrote Bird Box, which was so creepy and so good, says this: a truly innovative, fantastic work. Emphatically recommended. Reads like your favorite podcast, the hit crime doc you'll want to binge. A brilliant brewing of progressive internet influencers with smaller town police doing their best to keep up. Structurally fresh, these talking heads will enchant you. Oh my God, nothing could be further from nothing could be the truth, more truthful, I'm saying. Because I love this fresh, direct approach. Each character is talking to you. You hear their voices in your heads. It is absolutely wonderful. And I can't wait to listen to this conversation. So David Highfill, Suzanne and Matt, thank you for coming on and tell us about the book.
Thank you so much for having me. This is one of my favorite parts of what we do at Harper. So, this is great fun. A lot of what editors do is go to meetings and, read it all night and all weekend and edit and blah, blah, blah. But talking to people, hand selling, letting people know why we love something is the heart of what we do, right? So being able to do this for you and the library community just means a lot to me. So thanks for asking me. Lainey, Chris, and Virginia, thanks so much for setting this all up. I love this book. This is one of those great stories that I can tell. An editor friend became an agent. He and I knew each other years ago. His name is Paul Bresnik. Hadn't seen him in 10 years, maybe. He said, David, you want to have lunch? I said, sure. So happy to hear from him. One of the first things he says to me is, I have a novel written by two screenwriters that takes its origins from Theodore Dreiser's An American Tragedy. And after I took my jaw up off the floor, I said, well, you have to send it to me. And then he talked some more and I said, well, you have to send it to me exclusively. You have to send it to me. You know, editors are very competitive. If something sounds good, we have to have it just ourselves, right? So it was just so fun to get this proposal from Matt and Suzanne and get to know them and work on this book. And to have them here to tell you in person about it is just a great thing. So Matt and Suzanne, tell us about how you got interested in this story and why this story speaks to you.
Well, seduction, passion, ambition, betrayal, those things we find compelling. And, on one level, the Dreiser story was that classic crime narrative with body discovered, crime investigated, search for a suspect, capture and arrest, indictment, trial, verdict. So those pillars were very, very strong and sturdy. And we felt that we could, from that, embellish and improvise and go backwards and forwards in time. On another level, it is about that distinctive American desire, the desire for status, the desire for money, the desire for love and romance. And David, our original title wasn't The Anatomy of Desire, and David asked us to come up with some other titles, of which we came up with about 200.
You did, you did.
And we landed on The Anatomy of Desire, and we thought it was perfect because Dreiser was so much about that theme of desire and what's just out of our grasp and particularly as Americans. And primarily when we went into this, we knew we wanted to flip the gender of the main character, Clyde Griffiths, to a female and see it through a woman's eyes.
And I'd also add on to this, we are in a place right now where there are these firestorms that are coming at people and at events through social media. And so to be immersed in a story that kind of talks about or portrays the benefits of rising in social media, but also the risks in this digital age of kind of getting things right and getting things wrong, coupling that with the intensity of a love triangle and the kind of opening question, was it an accident? Was it murder? That's our favorite kind of setup when we're called to action for something that we read or that we listen to figure out what's going on. Also kind of using the format of multiple characters speaking in this docuseries transcript form, we thought would be really well suited to the story that we were telling, because we would allow the reader or the listener to kind of sit in the chair as if they were being spoken to be in the middle of the story, and to be able to kind of look right, look left on a panorama of experience. We think that kind of experience is really compelling for today's audiences.
I agree. And I think sometimes when we say it's told in a script format, or it's like the epistolary novel sometimes, or someone will say, is that format going to be limiting? Will it be a lesser experience? Will I feel a little bit distant or removed from these characters or what's going on? And I never ever felt that, even though seeing it initially I had that question, kind of, what will this be like, because it's different. But these characters, really jump off the page. Cleo, who's the center of the story, the woman who is the center of the love triangle. She just is such a vivid, delicious character. She speaks the way you expect her to speak. Tell us how you, I get the whole idea of changing Clyde to Cleo. I just thought that was just so smart, and it works completely. I completely bought it. Tell me about how you develop the character of Cleo. She's the center of everything, and she has contradictions. There are times when we, feel like she's a how should we say this? She is a multifaceted protagonist. She does things that we know are not smart and that will get her in trouble. And she has likely, she's killed somebody. Intentional or not, we don't know. But tell us, I'm going on too much, but tell us about how you developed the character of Cleo, because she's different than Clyde. She does have things about her that are different.
Sure. Well, we love that we opened the book with Cleo Ray speaking to us and asking, what does it matter if an influencer gains all the followers in the world only to lose her soul? So that is the contrast that we're working within. Cleo Ray has a dark past. She's been running from tragic events in her childhood. Her whole propellant into young adulthood has been to make something of herself, to strive, to rise. By putting her in the world of social media influencing, we were able, we felt, to give her a voice that could be everything it needed to be. We followed a lot of people online. We listened to how they were speaking, how they were going after getting attention through building audience, which is really closer to being, called followers. And the hard work that it took, or that it does take, to produce something of value or something that will attract people every day, multiple times a day. It just made her so rich and interesting. We wanted to have her have a light side to her. So she's almost a self-proclaimed, ray of light and sunshine. She's a positive influencer, a fitness influencer, what we call a fitness influencer. And that goes really nice in contrast with her dark side, with the mistake that she may or may not have made on the lake, with the dark past that she's running from. So we set up the perfect kind of light and dark contrast in the fast moving, free speaking, kind of wild action world that so many people are experiencing these days.
Tell us how you built this this docuseries style with these various characters speaking. One of the main characters who's sort of on the sidelines, but yet he is a shaper of this reading experience, is the docuseries audio producer, and how do you think about him as a character and how he plays a part in this kind of larger drama?
We'll probably both have.
Yeah, no, I mean, one thing that's interesting is in the Dreiser original, Duncan McMillan was the reverend, the minister who comes to the jail to counsel Clyde toward the end. And so we turned him into a documentary filmmaker. And we just thought that was great, because they are the confessors, right? The father confessors of our current world, our docuseries directors and interviewers who ask the questions and get people to spill all. And so we started with that concept. And then
I would say in our early development process, we knew that that Duncan would be in this role. He snuck up on us early on, though, when we realized the power and passion we had for him being both the narrator and the interviewer. And again, kind of to go to opening words that he has in this, it's not enough to ask the questions and listen to the answers. Just paraphrasing this a little bit, the real meanings come behind the words. So here we have Duncan, whose job is to record the events, video and audio record. And his format in this story is word transcript style. but he's actually the story maker. If he doesn't ask a question, if he doesn't make the cut, if he doesn't organize the stuff the way that is organized, then we wouldn't have the story that we have. And we recognize the incredible power in that. We also, I think, found ourselves whenever we weren't sure what to do next in the story or felt blocked or a little bit stuck, we had this kind of running joke that we would say to each other, what would Duncan do?
It's true.
And as two writers, that allowed us to inhabit one fictional character that we'd created and try to figure out what would he, so basically, what would he have recorded, or what editorial cut as a documentarian would he make to put the story together in what way?
Right, right. Tell us about some of the other characters who are commenting on Cleo and the situation. I'm thinking of the defense attorney, who's such a fascinating woman and just really very articulate and smart and savvy. Cleo's uncle, who's a talent manager in Hollywood, is very successful, very used to like controlling stuff probably. The prosecuting attorney, the local small town or county California prosecutor, seemingly unassuming. We don't want to judge him because he turns out to be just quite smart. Anyway, there are lots of smaller characters who don't play sometimes a bigger plotting role, but just have such a great role to play, each of them, even though they're smaller characters. Tell us about some of those.
The one that you left out, of course, is the love interest, Sandy Finch.
Right.
And he's the Brad Pitt of social media influencers. And he has a sports-oriented brand where his thing is to go around and embed himself in different sports and games, and then record video diaries and upload them to his YouTube channel and Instagram channel. And he's extremely successful, extremely popular, has millions of followers, both men and women. And, think of the sexiest man online. He's also fallen in love with Cleo Ray, but has no idea about the double life that she's leading. And I think, in terms of the evolution of that character, Dreiser had Sandra Finchley, who was the country club girl, came from, the upper class, beautiful, moneyed, and she kind of drops out of the story after Clyde gets arrested. So now they changed that in the movie version of Place in the Sun because they had Elizabeth Taylor and Montgomery Clift. So we sort of followed that lead. We thought, we need to keep that romance alive all the way through. And hopefully, we did that successfully so that people also have, besides the drama of a murder trial and did she or didn't she, and the social media firestorm, that there's heart to it. There's a warmth and a love story that we can believe in and root for.
And I'd say so we were very aware that we had the triangle of the love story. And as Matt said, kind of a Place in the Sun, we were really so affected by that adaptation. But we absolutely know under this documentary kind of storytelling format that, as you said, David, we need the pillars. Who's representing Cleo Ray, Alana? Who's, bringing the charges, the case from the local small town against her? Owen Mason. So we thought about those two characters and set them out so that they could be kind of complementary and in good opposition to each other. Their dialogue came really kind of easily for us. And so we have a triangle, then we set pillars out there, and literally we made a character schematic diagram. We have then, who's Cleo's family? Well, it's her uncle Samson, since she fled from her parents, but her parents will come into play later on. So we were very aware of all of the structures or the patterns and the pull points and the contrasts and the complements between characters. And that was perfectly built for then saying, okay, intercut, who's speaking now? Who's speaking now? And what do we want to do? What do we want to accomplish in the scene?
And there's a character who never speaks, but who exerts a great deal of influence over the story. And that is Beck Alden, who's the victim. And as the story opens, she's dead. But her presence, I think, haunts us throughout the story as she's revealed through different points of view. Her parents who loved her, through her private emails and messages, through the testimony of witnesses in the courtroom. It comes down to, was she an angel or a monster, right? Was she a heartbroken lover or a cold-blooded blackmailer? And we love playing with those kinds of polarities. Who were these people? Revealing them from multiple perspectives, one layer at a time.
I love the shifting questions that the novel, asks us. Essentially, is Cleo guilty or not? And what happened on the lake? And we all love a good courtroom drama, right? They're the kind of sense of surprises, revelations, emotional breakdown, whatever, great final scenes. It's kind of built in. If you're a Perry Mason fan or Law and Order fan or whatever, this stuff is built in, right? We love this stuff. But I was happy that so many places in the novel, like the character of Beck you just mentioned, you end up changing your mind about who these people are, and your sympathies for them are constantly changing. That Cleo, I think of Clyde as being sort of a cold-hearted guy and pretty weak, actually. That's my memory of it from many, many years ago. I didn't reread it. But this novel kind of asks us to change our mind a lot about who these people are. And I love that. I think readers are going to really enjoy that part of it too.
One of the best early readers' comments that we had was about Cleo Ray. He said, I loved her, then I hated her, then I loved her again. And it's that kind of roller coaster ride that we were hoping to create.
And the ending, I feel like I knew the ending in a way because of American Tragedy, but I also feel like what you did to really, when people read fiction, they want to feel like when they get to the end of it, that it has taken us someplace. Part of being a confident writer is saying where you're going on this journey is worth going to. It's just not just an ending that just, okay, fine. Yeah. You want to feel the culmination of something when you get there. And I thought what you did to surprise me, but also satisfy me as a reader, was just spectacular. I thought it was more moving and more tragic and more frightening and sad and alarming, and made me kind of reimagine or kind of look back on my assumptions about other characters. I just thought it was wonderful. And I think my hat's off to you. You did such a great job with taking us on this journey that really went somewhere and became a wonderful, rich reading experience. Not easy to do in a book like this.
Yeah, that means so much to us because those are the kind of endings that we love. Those are the memorable stories. We've been story fans in all forms for all of our lives. And that means we're talking decades and decades and decades combined. And the ones that stay with you are the ones that are just, that we're so interested in. So not to say that we would, that we think we can do this, every time out the gate, but that was a serious, yes, we can. But yes, that was a serious thing. We put a lot of effort into that, a lot of effort into testing that out and making sure that there were Kleenex, available, and that we got goosebumps and we were moved. And we maybe wanted to take a shower when we were done because we weren't quite sure how to rinse it off or whether we wanted to sit, and have a cup of coffee with the ending again. If
you look at the great stories, almost every single one of them has that memorable ending. So, there's pressure on an author, right, to be able to deliver something, because that's what the readers take away. That's their last touch point with the book is the ending. And it's very important to not only, try to come up with surprise, but like you said, satisfaction, and that's what we're hoping is whatever they're feeling, these were 320 pages of time well spent.
I know we're sort of getting to the end of our time here, but can you talk about the audio production just a little bit? I know it's going to be unusual and great.
We really conceived the book as a hybrid, writing both for the page and for voices and audio. And David, quite well that we were very meticulous about the layout of the book, which is unusual and different. And has different formatting and different fonts to really try to present that idea of the shifting perspectives and the different places that we go. And so it had to be all on the page first, until we could go to the audio side. And then the fun began, because just the casting process alone was so enjoyable. And talk about Shelby.
So the woman who's cast as our main character, Cleo Ray, Shelby Young, she came late to the casting. And so
she was the last person.
The last person cast. And you either cast in a way where you take your main character and cast out, or things fill in and then your main character drops in. What we love about Shelby is she herself is a social media star who's rising. We didn't go about thinking, oh, we'll have someone read this who is experiencing what Cleo Ray is experiencing. But once we realized that was an opportunity in this casting for her to bring this fresh perspective, first audiobook that she's reading, we hope that she's nailing, has nailed it. There's so much talent around her and all the other speaking parts that her just natural ability to show up and be this young, rising influencer who's light and dark, who's made mistakes, who generally strives to be positive and is going to take us on a memorable character journey. She was just perfect for that. We're thrilled about that.
Shelby is Cleo Ray, and we couldn't have had a better voice actress in that role.
And there are a lot of people cast, right? It's a full cast recording.
Yes. Santino Fontana and Marin Ireland and J.D. Jackson and, I think 15 total actors. And there's so much of it. I mean, traditional audiobook or, narrator production is one or two narrators speaking, and usually they're inhabiting the author's voice, right? And so we really don't have as much an author's voice here as we have 15 to 20 character voices, all very separate, all very different. And so that back and forth, I mean, the trial scenes and the testimony, I mean, the big, climactic scene is when the prosecutor, Owen Mason, goes against Cleo Ray, who's on the stand. And that's about a 10 or 12 page scene. I mean, it's long, very, very involved. And it's that back and forth, question, answer, question, answer, question, answer. And that is unusual in audiobook production. So that should be something that really distinguishes it.
Our goal was to have listeners binge, an audiobook, like viewers binge, their favorite docuseries experience.
So there's a term in print reading called unputdownable, right, David? We all like those books that are
yes.
So the audio production we're going to call unpausable.
Sounds good.
I want to hop in for a second because you're talking about the courtroom scene, and we have a couple of images that we wanted to show before we get to we have a bunch of questions for you guys. So can you first talk a little bit about what we're looking at right here?
That is the Inyo County Courthouse in Independence, California, which has an amazing history. It's in the National Register of Historic Places. It was completed construction in 1921. So this year is its centennial. I mean, this was before the Scopes monkey trial. And we went up and...
This is us in the courtroom that is modeled after, the place that Cleo Ray is going to spend weeks and weeks on trial for her life. And we were, this was pre-pandemic, so this was early last year. We
just in time.
Just got in, in time. We actually were given permission to be in the empty courtroom by one of the bailiffs who said, he's the camera person here, said, if you sit down quickly and take a picture, I'm good with that. We love that just one point here, the seats are the original seats from the courtroom 100 years ago. At the bottom of the seat is a gentleman's hat rack. These seats are fixed together. We describe those elements.
For Stetsons.
Yeah, Stetsons, for their Stetsons. We describe those elements, through the book. So it was wonderful to be able to go on a research trip, which for us in California was a driving trip, and to be able to really kind of pay respect to the county that we had chosen to set the story in, to be able to use as many real elements as possible, adapting them where we needed to.
And you met a librarian on this trip, right?
We
Yes.
did. It only got better. So we were from the courtroom there. We wandered down a big marble spiral staircase into what we call the basement area and found the county's central library filled with books, more books than could fit on the bookcases. We wandered in, and the first thing we did, recognizing our Dewey Decimal System, was we went looking for Dreiser's book. We found the book in hand, we're pulling it out, and a librarian approached us and said, well, can I help you? We proceeded to unspool our story to Nancy Masters, who is the librarian. She's an incredible historian. 2 hours later, we were still talking to her. She was completely lit up with what we were doing. And we were just so grateful to have a resource here. Number one, to find the book. That's one of those moments where you think, there we go. This is exactly where we're supposed to be. And number two, a woman who could tell us about.
Give us the insider view of Inyo County and the history. I mean, it's a fascinating history with the water rights and LA, and the Chinatown is about the water rights, and LA figuring out how to virtually steal the water from the Owens Valley. And so it just was wonderful meeting her, and she's been such a great resource for us. And
she found that edition of American Tragedy.
Yes.
Yep.
Which was dated in the early 50s. So it seemed like they maybe came out with an edition to coincide with the movie.
I'll leave it to a librarian.
Yep. As soon as she met us, she took the book kind of out of circulation. She said, I'm holding on to this to make sure the county has this original book that was centered on the incident when we met each other. So it's been off on the side. We hear it'll be showcased in some way. They're very, very proud of the story that is set in the county.
That's great.
That's so cool. Do we have any other images to show? Because we do have questions that we want to get to. Are there any other? That's the images. Okay, thank you so much. Lots of love here. Lots of hearts floating up. So, David, before we can go back and forth, but was there anything else that you wanted to ask Suzanne and Matt before we ask some questions?
No, I think that's great. Let's ask questions.
Okay, Chris, Lainey, you wanna read off some questions? Start from the top because the patient people have been up we'll just go down the list.
Yeah, I'll start with Todd. I'll start with Todd Kruger's question. What recommendations would you give to other couples who are considering writing a novel together?
Oh, great. Yes.
Did you say that was Todd Kruger?
Todd Kruger.
Yeah. Okay. You go on that one then.
Yeah, it's so interesting. First of all, I was a solo writer for many years before I met Suzanne. And I have to say, it's so nice to be able to get all those conversations that had to be in my head out to talk to another person about. Is really clarifying to the process. So it's a relief in that sense. I also think that it's funny because we've been contemplating this more recently, and the format of the book with the contrasting voices and shifting expressions, that's kind of how we do it. I mean, we talk often, we have different points of view and different ideas about things, and it's about working to achieve that synthesis. Nothing goes out without us having talked it all the way through, and sometimes it's a little tenser than others, but it makes the work better for sure.
So the key element there is that the format that we're using, the diversity of voice styles, allows maybe Matt to, writing as a couple is a 50-50 thing, right? If we disagree, who comes in to be the judge and tip it one direction or another. So we'll tend to maybe take a little more ownership of one character or another, say, trust me, I've got this one. This is what he would do. This is what she's going to do. So it allows us to have a lot of points where we can agree, but also those points that we maybe see things a little differently. We hopefully enhance the characters, and at the same time, we don't have to, bloody each other up too much with, with one person having an over-under dynamic on it. And it's just a lot of practice. Humor is critically important. We sit down and we do this like every day on a regular basis. And then when we're not doing it, we're not doing it. So that's essential too, to keep those boundaries, either doing it or not doing it, switching into, collaborative mode and switching back out to, under one roof mode.
And we have two people, Carmen Slaughter and Maureen Roberts, asked similar questions, and you've touched on it, but in case there's anything else you want to say. It said, so Carmen said, I was immediately intrigued because A Place in the Sun is one of my favorite films, and as screenwriters, did that film have any influence on the approach of your novel? Maureen asked a similar question about affecting your novel as screenwriters.
I think the major effect it had was the prominence of the love story. Mm-hmm. And clearly, if you look at posters from that movie or the way they sold that movie back in 1951, they were relying heavily on people being attracted to the coupling of Montgomery Clift and Elizabeth Taylor. And Dreiser, that character of Elizabeth Taylor in the Dreiser book, after Clyde gets arrested, she's not in the courtroom. She pretty much disappears. The only time you hear from her is she sends a note to him in jail, a brief note to him. And so that led us to think, that the romance is really important here. And we want to emphasize the love story.
We're going to keep the triangle alive throughout. We also had to modernize the triangle a little bit because, in the original period or in the 50s, if you have got a woman pregnant out of wedlock, that's a pretty big skeleton in the closet. It's not a big enough skeleton today. So we just completely kind of abandoned, anything that might be the basis from A Place in the Sun and thought, if we have a triangle today, secret relationship or secret relationships, what are the dynamics? What are the elements of that will keep that alive throughout the story with you not being ever completely sure who's the good guy, who's the bad guy, who was right, who was wrong? Should they have done what they did? Just keep you intrigued and engaged with the triangle.
So smart, so good. Okay, let's see. Jennifer Winberry. She says, did you plot and write the characters together, or did each of you take one element character?
We do it all together.
That's easy together.
Yeah, no, we talk through everything first, in the structure, where does it start? What's the second scene, the third scene, the fourth scene? So we're very, we never go really we go to opposite rooms to work on our stuff, but everything gets talked through in real time pretty much.
Particularly with the birthing of characters, as we're, bringing them to life, as we're doing their rundown, as we're talking about the elements that will be most engaging with them. We do that back and forth with each other, mostly at a verbal level, sometimes writing it down a bit. But until we have what we think the definition of the character is, we're completely in collaboration with each other because we believe that by the two of us, kind of working on that, we're going to end up with a little bit more than if one person just sussed it out by themselves.
The other point about that really is gender, right? So, and I think that the way we collaborate and the way we look at each other is more male-female than it is husband-wife. And we made a choice, a very conscious choice from the beginning, not to get our author voice pegged as male or female. We really wanted to blend the genders. And so a lot of the conversation we have is, would a woman say that? Would a man say that? I mean,
what would she do? What would he do?
I get a lot from Suzanne, oh, that's such a man way of thinking,
For her, that might be a bit of a man's way for her.
So that's a lot of how we reach consensus is working through the gender perspectives.
It sounds like such a 50-50 relationship you have as working writers. It's kind of fascinating. It sounds great.
Sometimes we flip a coin.
Yeah. And sometimes one just has to say, okay, I'll give you that one. I'll take the next one.
And that, I think that answered Joe Carroll's question. Why did you decide to do it with a female lead rather than a male? But I think you just turned it on its head. Chris, Lainey, are there more questions?
Yeah, looking through here. Sorry for the wait. Vicky Nesting asked, so were you writing this during the pandemic? And if so, did that make it easier or harder?
Wow, so this almost exactly paralleled, the development of this book almost exactly paralleled the timing of the pandemic. And I would say for me, it was easier because we didn't have any no social engagements. We were just holed up here and had nothing else to do but write together.
We were grateful for the steadiness of writing. It also worked out that we had simpler lives every day. So there was more time to fill toward the writing. The writing gave us a steadfastness and a purpose. I think, yeah, it just became our routine. And so we're really grateful for that. And also, yes, probably got a little more done.
A lot fewer distractions.
Yeah. Beth Thomas wants to know if you had any input from prosecutors or attorneys while writing.
We did quite a bit of research on that.
We consume a lot of product, book, listening, viewing that's in the space of that. So a lot of research.
And in the Dreiser novel, I mean, he gave a lot of, there was a lot of description of the legalities of the courtroom pieces. And so we followed a lot of Dreiser's lines. I mean, and there's a part of, back then they would take the train, it wasn't a sheriff, it was a coroner. They wouldn't drive to the crime scene, they'd take a train to the crime scene. The note that they find in Roberta's jacket, we had as a text message that was unsent on her phone. And that's the first clue that they find that she was up there with someone else. And so, yes, we tried to follow Dreiser's line as much as possible and then, support it by doing a lot of extra research.
Excellent. I think we have one more question on Facebook, and you answered this to a degree. I mean, you're both career, writers. You've been doing this for a long time, and there's a lot of discipline that comes with that. But did you find it hard to walk away from that writing space you talked about and just be together? I mean, are there ever thoughts like, you're sitting watching TV and you're like, you know what? I got to bring this up. It's bugging me. Is that hard to do, to find that balance?
It is hard. So we try to do things like, we love to take hikes in the year. So perfect when gyms and everything closed down during the pandemic. We're in an area where we're able to get outside and we've got some nature that we can get around to. We might set a guideline that we're going to be with each other and be with nature and not bring something up. If it comes up, usually we're pretty good at kind of trying to shut it down, at least until we're done with this period that we said we wouldn't. Sometimes one or both of us will need to stick something in our ears to listen to something because we want to talk to each other. So it's a give and take, and we try to be pretty funny about it. We have all kinds of cueing that we give each other of, not now, but humor really will go a long way, to getting us to the end of the day with some balance.
Someone saying something?
Lainey? Yeah, Lainey. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I think we were going to address the, somebody has a question about the audio e-galley. So
I don't know for sure if we're going to have an audio e-galley up before, but I'll look into it and I'll get back to you.
Yeah. So we have e-galleys. We have e-galleys and there are audio galleys. So we will find out. And there's so much interest. not only in the book itself and the story itself, but the audio aspect of it, which is really fabulous. I mean, there are people here saying, I don't really even listen to audiobooks, and I can't wait to listen to this one.
Great.
Yeah. Lainey, there's a question from Casey Davis?
She asked what books are on your nightstand, what you're reading.
We, you know, I'll tell you what I just read and I loved, and has very little to do with anything we're working on. Act 1 by Moss Hart, which is a memoir, which was published in 1959. It's been out there forever. I knew about it, and it was Pamela Paul on the New York Times book review podcast who mentioned it. They did an episode on memoirs, and she mentioned it and just said the most glowing things about it. I said, you know, I should check that out. So I actually got it on audio, and it was fun. Anyone going into show business, any area of show business, that's where they should start. Not William Goldman's Adventures in the Screen Trade, but Moss Hart's Act 1. That will tell you everything you need to know about getting into show business. Fabulous book.
I'd say Kristen Hanna just keeps appearing on my nightstand. It's amazing. Yeah, just fascinated with how prolific and steady she is with the with the creation of story. Josh Mallerman, when Mallory came out as the second part of Bird Box, just devoured that. The other thing is, I'm a yoga teacher, but I have not taught in studio for the past year. So also on my nightstand sometimes might be some yoga philosophy of completely out of the wheelhouse kind of reading material that helps to keep me kind of feeling balanced, and not that everything is about story form and structure in the commercial way that we're approaching it. But there's some fabulous stories that go back, you know, through time. Stories have been told forever, and any place that there's a good story is a place, you know, where we're likely to find ourselves either reading or listening.
Turning around my bookshelf to our bookshelf. But yeah, I mean, it's hard. What's hard is to separate the reading for work and the reading for pleasure, because there's so much research that we do and so many things that we're reading to inform us and inspire us about the work. And then there's just the pure pleasure stuff, which I wish we had more time for.
No kidding. I think we all have. We were just talking to an editor before saying, wait, there's too many books, not enough time.
I really want to read that Mike Nichols biography. I'd love to go to a beach somewhere for a week and just read that Mike Nichols biography by Mark Harris.
Yeah, it's a life. Well, I can't believe how this time has flown. We certainly didn't. I don't know. I underestimated the amount of time. This time flew, and the love and the thumbs up and the hearts that are floating up and just the great comments, and people can't wait to read it. People can't wait to hear it. And we can't thank you enough, Suzanne and Matt, for coming on and talking to us about your book. And David Highfill, you are just a genius. And The Anatomy of Desire by L.R. Dorn, coming out in May, is something like you've never read before. I can tell you it will stay with you long after you've turned the last page. But it's a wild journey. And this has been really interesting to hear the journey of this book and how it came to be. So I thank you all. Chris, Lainey, and I thank you all so much. Is there anything before we sign off that David, Suzanne, or Matt, you want to make sure we mention? Otherwise, we'll say our goodbyes.
We always say thank you to David. David, thank you.
David, thank you.
Thank you for lunch, and thank you to Paul for having lunch with you.
Yes. Thanks for having us, Lainey, Virginia, Chris. This was great. Love this kind of interview format. It's great.
Yep.
Yeah, this was fantastic. And so many people still are saying, thank you. This was so interesting. Can't wait to read it. Thank you. This was fabulous. I mean, you can see it yourselves when you get off. It's really wonderful. So
right off the press.
Yes.
Yes, they should have the audiobook on Edelweiss and NetGalley later this month. So
what?
Quick answer for you.
Okay, say it again, Lainey. Say it again.
So our audio e-galleys available for librarians to listen to early. You know, it's a different process. It's not the full audiobook, but they get to listen to it. It will be available later this month on Edelweiss and NetGalley. So librarians, you can take a listen.
All right.
That is fabulous. That is fabulous. Oh yeah. Those are the two platforms that librarians use to get their e-galleys and now their audio galleys when they are available. And that is an audio galley that is going to be listened to. What did you call it before, Matt? Unpausable? Is that what you said?
Unpausable.
I love that. That's great. Okay. Well, this has been a fantastic hour. And we can't thank you enough for coming on, all three of you. And David Highfill, thank you so much. Suzanne, Matt, L.R. Dorn, and the Anatomy of Desire.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone. And we'll see you again soon.
Take care.
All right. You too. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, all.